All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Estimating Edge product suite in foundation software integration. I'd like to start out with letting you know that there is a handout available for you in the handout section on your little, I guess, where you logged in. You can open up that. It should be a link to a data sheet on the integration. This is intended for people who are either familiar with the edge or familiar with foundation. If you have both and are already leveraging both programs, there's going to be additional information that we can provide to you. You can just contact us after this demo is complete or webinar is complete. First, I'm going to start off with the edge side of the program. And I'm going to build out an estimate just kind of quickly to explain a little bit about the program, how the estimate comes together. And then I'm going to show you how to push the data to Foundation. So I'll go through a little bit of the steps that I would go through in a typical demo, but I'm going to kind of breeze through a little bit quickly. And if you'd like additional information or more depth, obviously reach out to us after the webinar is complete. We'll provide information on how to contact us once we're done. First, my name is Lou. I've been with the Edge nearly 5 years. And what I'm going to do as part of the demo is I'm going to bring in an estimate set up for roof. So that's going to be what I'm going to go through, and I'm going to bring that in right now. All right, so this is the Edge. Now, all I did so far was log into the program. So from here, what you're typically going to do is start off with the plus sign to create a bid. Now, the other half of this is going to be done by Dylan, who is with Foundation. And so when I transfer the data into Foundation from the Edge, he's going to pick up from there. And I'm going to start off right now with the estimate piece, and we're going to start a roofing company. We're going to call it DL for Dylan Lou Roofing. And what you'll typically do at this point is go ahead and grab some kind of images for your bid. Now, in truth, the Edge doesn't even really care if you have an image or not. It doesn't care if you're doing Eagle View imagery, or if you're doing maybe Google Earth. I think that's typically probably the most common, I would say, is Google Earth. But you can also bring in PDFs for new construction as well, and that will be just fine, as you can see right here. So you may have a whole bunch of other additional images here, but you're just going to kind of focus on grabbing those images that you want to actually leverage for takeoff, and then create pages on the side for the program to be able to then put your conditions into. Conditions are basically the brains of the Edge. So this is probably the most important aspect of the kind of takeoff calculation aspect of our software. So I'm going forward to that roof drawing number 1 that I brought in. And when I go forward one more spot, this is where you're going to bring in your conditions. So I set up some conditions here to bring in, and I'm going to do some quick takeoff. While I'm doing this, I just want you to be aware that, again, just to reiterate, I'm doing takeoff specifically to roofing. We can also do drywall, fireproofing, paint, waterproofing, several other trades. So This one in particular is going to be roofing, but I think you'll still kind of get a gauge of how the program works with that aspect of pushing to foundation. So this is bringing in those particular conditions. Now, if you've done any sort of takeoff before, you're just grabbing quantities in a standard takeoff software. In the Edge, as you're doing the takeoff, again, I brought in this mechanically attached TPO just as an example, very generic, but once you go inside of here, you'll see this is what's actually going on in the background of your takeoff. So the mechanically attached TPO here, we have a perimeter sheet on. It's a 5 by 100 roll. Our end lap calculation is going to be at 6 inches, and our side lap is going to be at 6 inches. Now, if you wanted a second perimeter sheet, you would just turn that on. In the field, we're going to do a 10 by 100 roll. Now, inside of here, this is going to be where you're going to have a lot of other additional material that will come preloaded that has manufacturer-specific items inside of it. The rest of the information for the particular systems are going to be across the tabs here on top. So the insulation for this example, we have one layer, 2 inches thick. It's 4 by 8 sheets of ISO. We have fasteners, 8 fasteners per sheet. If instead you're going to use an adhesive, then you'll turn off the fasteners and then go grab your adhesive. Again, you're going to have preloaded information. This has a little bit more in it for you to see. The other one will actually have a lot more in it as well. But you can see here, these aren't just labels. This is 6 inch on center, and you're going to get a different calculation if you're using something from Elevate ISO Fix 2 with 12 inch on center. So as you're doing your takeoff, the calculations are going to be happening on the back end simultaneously. All right, so I don't want to get too caught up in the weeds there, but I want you to know that as you're doing your takeoff, you're not just going to get a quantity, it's going to be doing math on the back end, and that's where you're going to get your list of items from and your calculations for your material moving forward. So once you bring in your information and you move forward to start doing your actual takeoff, this is now a setup where you're going to have kind of a dual screen setup, and you'll have this on one monitor and then your other list of conditions on your other monitor. I can only show you one monitor at a time for this webinar, so it's kind of overlapped on top, so hopefully that won't cause any trouble. But as you continue on through doing your actual takeoff here, you'll see it's putting the quantities for your takeoff right over inside of each of those conditions. So typically takeoff is takeoff. If you've used anything else before moving to the Edge, it's reasonably similar. You're just grabbing quantities. So this isn't necessarily the magic of the Edge. This isn't what gets everyone excited. It's what's going on as you're doing this. That's you know, kind of the big time advantages. Now, as I'm doing this, I do want to point out, and I know I'm downplaying it a little bit, but I do want to point out that you can do highlighter, you can do arrows, you can put notes. There's a lot of other features and functionality that is inside of the drawing screen, but the primary aspect of it is just grabbing the quantities here. Okay, so as you do that now, those quantities are now coming across on your other monitor, hopefully, to the conditions here. So those quantities now are multiplying across. As they multiply across, your next steps for the estimation process are going to be these buttons up here. So you're going to price your material for the job, you'll make sure that you're calculating your labor correctly, and it's going to bring in how you want to calculate your labor and the pricing that you want for your material. It's also going to take those totals. You can add in your markups on the recap screen, and then you'll have reports. So in a nutshell, as you're doing the takeoff, these quantities come across, and then you'll start going through the process here, which now is your material list. So we didn't have a lot of things turned on. It's a short list here, but you can see they all came from various conditions that we had as we were doing the calculations. You can set up your own waste percentage as kind of one of the advantages that you can do here. Now, pricing a job is its own can of worms. Right here, you can update your prices. Another opportunity you have is to basically grab some of your items that maybe you want to get prices on, click on vendor quotes. When you click on vendor quote, you're going to then have, oh man, we'll see what this looks like. You're going to then have a list of additional items here, and it's going to bring in the quantities, and then you can turn on each of the vendors that you want the quotes to actually go to. Once you send it to your vendors, you'll receive a notification up here in the program, and it will then let you know that you need to determine which pricing you want to move forward with. Once you open up that window, it'll show up here on this pricing screen. You'll then be able to select which vendor you want to go with, and when you do, it'll take those prices and apply them into the job for you. So that's one of the ways that our customers are keeping their prices up to date in their database. So let's say these were the prices that I just got from my vendors and I accepted them. I could then take those prices, I select those lines, and then I can send those prices to the database. So I can then, select them, send it, and now when I do my next bid, it's going to bring in the updated pricing. Another fun thing, just really quickly, that you can do in here is you can also increase your prices. So if you knew next quarter you wanted to increase your pricing by 6% because you already received notification from your vendor, you could go ahead and do that as well. And then once you do that, the Edge is going to say, hey man, that's a little bit higher than what we had in the database, just to give you a heads up. And like I did before, I could select these and then send those to the database if I want that to be the price for my next job moving forward. Another thing to point out really quickly here is that on the end line, I have my cost code and my cost class. Now, if you are already an Edge user, I just want to point something out really quickly. The way to kind of go about bringing those in would be go to options, and then you'd go to preferences and program features. And then right here, you'll change user 1 and user 2. And I went ahead and changed that to cost code and cost class prior to this. And the reason I did that is because that is what matches up very nicely with the foundation integration. So it'll come in as cost code and cost class, and it's gonna have that label for each item that you bring in to the budget. So each of them have already been saved. So I have a cost code and a cost class already saved for each of the items that I'm bringing in for material. I think that's enough for material. I'll go quickly through labor. Labor is interesting because everyone does it their own way, and we can calculate labor production however you want to do it. Really quickly, I'll explain mine here that I like to use that works with my brain. EU per hour is estimated unit. So I could then go to estimated unit and see what each of these labor items are. So for example, if I was doing the mechanically fastening of the TPO by square, I could say how many squares can I do in an hour? And so on here, I did half of a square. So I think that I might be able to do half a square in an hour for my fastening my TPO. So however you choose to do your labor, that's something we comb through with you during the onboarding and setup of this process. But I do want to point out again that your labor items are also going to have your cost codes and cost classes as well. So that is also something that you will assign in the program to each of the labor items. So just as a side note, again, for the edge users, if you are using phases, you would basically go to your section and use the S1 area here. So that would be where you would add in your basically your phase code. So I don't have any in here. I can select, no phase or, phase one, or you can enter in whatever you want into the pick list. But that is basically where you would bring in your phase information. All right, so moving along again, all of those totals from your material and your labor will move forward, and then you'll add in your tax. So your, sales tax, maybe your burden. If some of our customers like to break this out, if you'd like line item by line item, you could do that as well. This section is completely customizable. But I just wanted to basically show that as you do the takeoff, the program is creating a contract dollar amount. So this is something we may want to take note of here. So 63,938 and 93 cents, because when we go to push the contract dollar amount, that will be some of the information that gets picked up in that integration. So from here, I think I'd like to go to the portal. And in the portal, bring this over. In the portal, oh, wait a second. Before I do that, as one of the steps that you need to do, you need to take that job and check it into the cloud. All right, so I check that into the cloud, and I'm gonna go back to the portal. Okay, back in the portal here. Okay, so I'm in the portal now, and I'm taking a look at that job that I just checked in. This DL Roofing is my new company with Dylan, and this is basically where you will come in to push the data over. So it's very easy. You'll go to the ellipsis buttons here and go to Foundation Budget Export, and you wait. You do a new job. I'm going to call it DL Roofing. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and export that. This is the API aspect of the integration. So it says export successful here. So I won this job and I pushed it to my accounting platform. One more thing before I pass it to Dylan that I want to quickly point out is there is a way for you to be able to bring in your cost codes and cost classes into the edge. So instead of going into the program and entering them in one by one, you can sync in the portal with the edge from Foundation to bring in each of your cost classes that you already have in your accounting platform, as well as your cost codes and your phases. So all you would do is click on the sync. In fact, I can just quickly show you how to do that. And this is going to bring in the cost classes and cost codes so that you can now select these when you're going into each item for material or labor production. Okay, I think that is all the time that I should probably take, and hopefully that wasn't too much of Dylan's time
here?
No, you're completely okay, Lou. I appreciate it. So now what we're gonna kind of show as we're switching screens here is what that's gonna look like when it comes over into Foundation. And we will leave a little bit of time at the end for questions as well. If you do throw some questions in the question panel, me and Lou will get to those at the end of the webinar, okay? So now we should be able to see my screen here that's showing Foundation. And Luke went in there, he did his estimate, or your guys' estimators would go into the edge and do their estimate for whichever trades you guys were. He showed roofing specifically, but you know, those other interior trades that he mentioned are great fits for the edge. And you know, this is going to, that API connection is going to create that seamless link between our sister companies here, Edge and Foundation. So the office staff would then be able to go into job cost maintenance and go into jobs. And then you would see an option on here that if you didn't have the integration set up, we would now see a validate third-party jobs option. So I come in here and validate third-party jobs, and you'll see that that job and that estimate that Lou built out in one is now there. You click the option to validate it, and it's going to create that job in the system and pull it in. So now I have that DL roofing. I could come in here, I could assign my customer, I could create a customer on the fly, and then put all my other information on here as well. You'll actually see that contract value that Lou built out with all of the pricing, that's 63,938.93, is going to now show up in your original estimated contract. And then you'll also have the 48,000 net cost showing as the original estimated cost. What it'll also do besides just creating the job is going to bring in all those budget and line items. So when he was on his material screen pricing out the materials and he showed you that cost code and cost class option over there on the right hand side, where that's going to pull into Foundation is here on the budget. It is going to break it down by cost code and cost class. If he had phases, we could break it down by phase and cost code and cost class. We'll see all the breakdowns. So each cost code is going to have that breakdown between labor, materials, labor burden if we have it in there, and then also any other breakdown as well, or whatever your guys' cost codes and classes would be. So you can see where that pulls in. From there, I can just simply go ahead and save that, and now that is an available job to use into the accounting system. So again, this is going to create that seamless link between the estimators and the back-end office staff for the accounting system to be able to have that nice, quick, easy push from one to the other instead of having to take a CSV export and import it into the system, or just manually entering the budget in the system. That's going to create user error and lag in timing and things of that nature. Once the estimator says it's good to go, they push, and then you pick it up in the accounting end. From there, you're going to have all of the benefits of doing job cost accounting within Foundation. We're going to be able to get our job cost reports when we use the system. So if I have an accounts receivable invoice or AIA billing that I need to do, I run those through that job. If I have AP invoices, it's going to limit my cost code and cost class entry within the system as well. So when I get an AP invoice and I put in my vendor information, and then I go down and I find that job now in my system, DL roofing here, I get my invoice in, I put in my invoice date, I can put in my invoice total. Down here on the bottom where you actually enter your direct expense, materials, I put in my 10,000, I throw in my job 23021. My cost codes will now be limited based off of the estimate that Lou built or your estimators build in the edge. So I choose my cost code and classes and do multiple lines if needed, and I can actually go in, put that invoice into the system. I didn't put the extra zero in there, so it's going to give me a distribution error. I save that, I list it, and I post it. If I'm talking about payroll and you guys are running payroll through the system, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to limit cost codes to only allow cost codes that are on the budget. If we're talking about our mobile app for time card entry in the mobile app, it'll do that as well. It's going to limit it. So it's going to create that nice seamless integration, reduce the possibility of user errors by having the seamless integration between the two, and just allowing you guys to get everything under one roof to kind of make that as easy of a process as possible. After I run those, I can now pull job cost reports, either canned job cost reports like an over under billing, or I can pull job cost reports that are built into the system. So these custom job cost reports can be built, and I can run those in the system as well. This is a kind of more simple one, but you can see that DL roofing, there's that current material that I just posted into the system. And then you can also see a breakdown of anything else. So this is a kind of simple, more cost class breakdown where I can see current billings versus current cost and a breakdown of all my cost classes. But I could run a budget versus actual, and I can run it for that job and hit report, and you'll see the only cost to date I should see is on that cost code and class that I used on that AP invoice. So again, like I said, we're going to have this seamless, quick and easy integration where estimator does his takeoff and his estimate with an edge. You simply go into the portal, just like Lou said, a couple clicks of a button, and it's pushing the budget and the job into the system for then you guys to be able to use in the back office, and then be able to push out job cost reports, whether that be through Foundation or whether that be Executive HQ or any of our HQ suite of products as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this open to questions. So if you guys do have any questions, we'll use the remaining 5 minutes here to just go through any questions. And if you do ask a question and me and Lou happen to not get to it within the the time frame, one of us will reach out. And then also I like to point out, if you guys want a follow-up demo on Edge or Foundation, you can type your name in the questions box as well, like, hey, could you reach out and get me set up with a personalized demo? Lou might have showed roofing, but you guys might be drywall or fireproofing, and you guys want a more specific demo to your trade. Drop your name in the questions as well, and one of us will reach out and get you set up for something on that end as well. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to filter through so everyone can note down Lou's email and my email as well. So Lou Irene at estimatingedge.com, L-I-R-E-N-E, Estimating Edge, and then my email pop up here, dkilpatrick@foundationsoft.com. So just like I said, throw a comment, shoot us an email if you guys do want a more personalized demo. We can get you set up in the next couple of weeks.